Greetings and welcome to Meet a CHM Family Member. My name is Cory MacDonald, Engagement Director for the Choroideremia Research Foundation. And before we begin, I'd like to thank our sponsors, Biogen, Spark Therapeutics, and Santan for providing the funding for us to do these types of interviews. With me today, I have a good friend who lives across the pond in the UK, and his name is Wayne Thompson. How are you today, Wayne?
Thanks, Cory. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing well on a Friday. So now you're from Staffordshire. Now, for those that aren't huge on the geography of the UK, everybody knows where London is who doesn't live in the UK. So now where are you in comparison to London?
So we're about 120 miles north of London. So if you stuck a pin right in the middle of England, you'd be somewhere near where I live. About 20 miles north of Birmingham.
Okay. I know Birmingham only because, well, that's where Black Sabbath is from. But anyway, that's a different subject. So now you work, and when you sent in your basic information form, I said, well, okay, I have to ask him exactly what the heck is this? You're a technical delivery manager. Now, what does that actually entail?
I suppose I could describe it as being a professional cat herder. So my job basically entails, it's IT, all IT related. So I'm fortunate enough to work for West Midlands Police in Birmingham, and my job is to go around and harass people until they've done what they're supposed to do, really, with a bit of technical know-how thrown into it. Yeah, it's a good job. It's a good place to work. I've been there for 18 months now. Nice. Most of it spent in lockdown, unfortunately, but no, it's good. I enjoy it.
Yeah, unfortunately, and you get the added bonus that if your wife drives into Birmingham and illegally parks or something like that, you can get the ticket.
I'll just get the blue badge out and park up there, and it's fine. We park anywhere we like. apart from maybe the chief constable's space, I think he might get a bit upset by that.
Yeah. You do have your limits that you have to watch. So and now I know that and I know we've had this discussion before, because I know I mentioned that there was another CHMer, but you are into archery, which yes. I've always found interesting. Now, are you still doing that actively, or?
Not for a little while. I think for jobs and work and it got in the way a little bit, but it was something I really do enjoy, and it's something my daughter's taken up as well, and has inherited her dad's natural ability for shooting arrows.
Oh, nice. Yeah, because there was a gentleman, Mike Martins, from California, who also was into archery, and I said, now that's, but the more you think about it, the more you think, well, yeah, you can. Someone with restricted visual field like us, once you find your target, well, there's your target, and you can then go from there. So
bizarrely, I only started shooting when I registered blind, which was back in 2003, and I got a load of info through from the sort of social care people, and there was a whole raft of stuff from British Blind Sports. And there was a section on archery. I thought, how on earth could that actually happen? That just didn't make sense at all. So I kind of found there was a local club, and went along, and it just so happened that one of the coaches there was a guy who had sort of helped develop the sport of visually impaired archery, a guy called Harry Healy. And him and a friend sort of developed one of the first sort of tactile sights to allow people who don't have any vision at all to shoot. So he was kind of the best coach you could possibly have had, because he understood the difficulties.
Yeah,
yeah, it was good. I had a good run. I won the British Championship for a few years on the trot. Still holds 5 records, I think, for visually impaired archery. So it's good. It's hard work. Anybody who's done it for a while will attest to that. But it's definitely an enjoyable sport. Yeah, so I'll definitely get back into sooner rather than later.
Yeah. I've always had that, right around the corner from my house, we have Smith & Wesson, and they actually have a school, and I just have this in the back of my brain, walking in there with my cane one day and saying I want to sign up for lessons. just for their reaction would just be, I need to have a GoPro or something so we can catch the reactions on video, you know.
Yeah, went to one of these sort of country fair things where they have, you know, the medieval archery stand and things like that. So it was when I was, you know, shooting regularly. I walked up with my daughter to have, you know, paid my £1 to have a go. Walked up with my cane, and then sort of said, "Yeah, hold this, stand back," and proceeded to put arrow after arrow in the gold. And I think that I wish I could have seen the look on people's faces.
It's beautiful. And that you've done something else too, which I think is so cool. And I wish I don't know of it going on in the United States, but driven high-end sports cars. There's that program. I remember your wife posted something about it, and I'm like, that. Tell me about that program. I think that is like one of the coolest things.
Quite a few places do it, but there's one happens every couple of years near us. There's an organisation called the Institute of Advanced Motorists, and they're like volunteer driving instructors who improve people's driving skills. And every couple of years, they sort of beg, steal, and I won't say steal, borrow cars to let visually impaired people drive. So it's just a small circuit, like an oval circuit, and you get a you know, decently quick cars, and they also get people to bring their other cars as well. So there's like Porsche Caymans, and somebody had got a Tesla, and you don't get to drive those, but they drive around it as fast as they possibly can do. So it's great fun.
That is
cool.
But
I was 17. I passed my test at 17 and got diagnosed a month later. So that was my 1 month of driving in my entire life. So Melissa's never been driven by me in a car. So I jumped in one of these cars. I think it's a Mini Cooper. So it's quite a quick car. And he was an advanced police driver next to me. So he was telling me when to accelerate, when to brake, and when to turn, that type of thing. So my foot was flat to the floor. So above the scream of the engine was the screamer of Melissa in the back saying, "Slow down, slow down, slow down." And the guy saying, "No, keep going, keep going." And then you don't know how much he cannot see in the. So yeah, I think Melissa drowned out the scream of the engine.
Oh my gosh, that is hilarious.
But they're good fun days.
Oh my gosh, I had plans to drive a few years ago. We were coming back from Yellowstone, and near Salt Lake City is a place called the Bonneville Salt Flats, which is where they do the speed trials and everything. And hey, we had a rental car. And so I was sitting there thinking to myself, my gosh, okay, there's nothing for me to run into, you know, and why not? Let's do this. And we had it all planned out. Karen was going to videotape. My brother John was going to help me navigate, and I was going to drive with one hand and wave my cane over the hood of the car with the other. we had it all planned out. And unfortunately, they had that week, they had torrential rains in the area, and the salt flats were under 12 inches of water on the day that we could have done it. And I was like, oh man, Mother Nature messed up my plans. I said, this would have been great, but oh well, maybe next time when we head out there, I can, you know, we'll get it done. So let's get into a few questions here. So how has CHM personally affected you? Now, you were diagnosed and you said a month, so I'm assuming you were a teenager when you were diagnosed, and then
17.
Yeah,
back in 1987.
Okay.
So yeah, I'd been having trouble reading books, like revising for exams. My eyes were getting tired, so I went for the eye test. Did the field test, which I say those days because it makes me sound really old, but back in the day, it was a black piece of felt with a little white dot, which was moved to the center of the, the more mature ones will probably know what we're talking about.
Oh yeah.
None of these flashing light rubbish. It was good old school stuff.
Old school. Oh yeah.
That was when I was 15 and sort of went backwards and forwards. Well, I didn't go backwards and forwards to the hospital because I didn't get an appointment for 2 years. Did a field test. He had a look in my eyes and was like, got some bad news for you. And sort of sat me down and said, do you drive? And I went, yeah, I've just passed my test. He goes, oh, I think you can forget about that. And what are you going to do when you leave school? I said, I've just applied to join the Air Force. He's like, no, I think you can forget about that as well.
Oh wow.
And that was kind of it. We don't need to see you again. There's nothing we can do for you. Thanks for your time. Goodbye. And that was kind of it.
Mm-hmm.
So
now did they diagnose you correctly the first time, or?
Yes. Yeah, I was diagnosed with choroideremia.
Oh wow. So you're one of the rare ones.
Yeah.
And so now, how has, moving forward from there, now how has CHM personally affected you?
I suppose it's one of those things that, I guess driving is probably that independent side of it, driving being part of it, which I suppose I never missed. I never got used to, so I never missed. So obviously getting around is always a bit of a challenge, but I suppose to some degree, it just life continued and had a job. I've always worked since I left school. We've always worked in IT pretty much. And so just life sort of continued. I've managed to travel and, since I met Melissa 30 years ago now, we've done a bit of traveling, we've had kids. So I suppose to some degree it hasn't really, I don't know what I haven't missed, if you know what I mean. So nothing's been taken away from me. So other than useful peripheral vision, I suppose. But, just kind of make the best of what we've got.
Exactly. Yeah, I understand that. I mean, I didn't even get a month. I never drove. So, that was my decision but I had the advantage of knowing ahead of time, as opposed to you getting it at 15. I grew up knowing, so there was a different dynamic in play there. But I understand, and you have the advantage in the UK, at least from what at least from my limited interaction in the UK. The transportation system, the rail system, is pretty darn extensive. So I would assume that it's not super difficult to get from one place to another if you need to.
But I mean, we live in a village, so we don't have any sort of public transport directly. So okay. I do go to work on the train, but get taxis to the station with some support to do that. So it's quite good that in 40 minutes I got a 40-minute train journey and a 20-minute walk the other side. So it works out quite well for me to be able to do that. But yeah, I can just jump on the train and be most places in the country in a few hours, I suppose. It's not like as big as America, so it's going to be a lot easier to get around.
Yeah, because in America, I mean, there are huge swaths of area, and not even just in the United States, but even just in the state of Massachusetts. Like you go into Boston, they have a good transportation system there. You come here to my town in Springfield, we have a bus system that's pretty decent, and Worcester and Framingham kind of have their own bus systems. But once you get outside of those areas, forget it. It just doesn't exist in many areas.
One thing that does make a lot of difference, that having a guide dog now as well, that so me and him can jump on a train or a bus and go pretty much anywhere we want to. So that does make a difference.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And that kind of brings me to my next question was, what, and the guide dog, of course, being one of those. So what type of adjustments have you made as choroideremia has progressed to help you live your life better?
Probably not as many as Melissa probably would like, but try to, from work wise, they've got assistive software and magnifiers and all that sort of thing. I use my phone a lot for whatever I can, magnifiers, screen readers, that type of thing. We try to have contrasting coloured kitchen utensils, for example, just so if I remember where I've put it down, I can generally find it. So I suppose it's a lot of simple things really that we can. A lot of it's trial and error, I think. So what works for one probably won't work for another. So there's lots of things to try and do. So yeah.
A cutting glove is a must for working in the kitchen.
Yeah, there's one we bought. I bought one of those for, it's called a no cry glove from Amazon. And I thought, yeah, no cry would equate to not slicing your finger off with a knife. So I hadn't used them for a while, and I was preparing some food. It was sweet potatoes of all things, and I was chopping it, and then I suddenly realised that I got quite a bit of blood on my hand from the cut on my finger. I remember those gloves. I think I'll get those out of the cupboard and use those regularly now. It's a lot less painful.
Yeah, and it's not. I mean, it's one thing to be a host, but really, your guests don't need your DNA on their food. So I understand.
What's the unusual flavor on your pork ribs, Cory? Well,
exactly. I was slicing. We used to have a countertop meat slicer, and I was slicing mortadella once, and my hand, because mortadella is a little greasy, and my hand slipped on as I was holding the meat, and took off just the very tip of my finger, but it was just not even to the nails. So it was a very small chunk, but once I got the bleeding to stop, it was then a fun time sorting through these slices of meat.
And the bit of your finger you left behind.
Exactly. So yeah, I will understand that. And you mentioned adaptive technologies too. You said you use your phone, and then do you use any other types of software? Or
on my work computer, I use Dolphin Supernova, one of the sort of, I suppose, well-known brands. I just kind of got used to it, so I stick with what I know. Then on the phone, I was sort of very anti-Apple for quite a while, and then started reading about Soundscape and Seeing AI and things like that. And I think that was a little bit of a game changer, actually, especially Soundscape, because I had an appointment at Manchester Eye Hospital, and I went up on my own, and I thought I could either go and get a taxi. So it was about a 2-mile walk, or let's have an adventure. So I've got some of those bone conductive headphones, and so I put on Soundscape, put the postcode in, or zip code as you'd call it, put on Google Maps with the same destination, and pressed the buttons, and off we went, and made it 2 hours, the 2-mile walk through the middle of Manchester, through roadworks and traffic and madness, to the front door of the hospital without any dramas at all. And I thought that was absolutely, it was a nice hot day, but I really enjoyed it. It was hard work, but I definitely enjoyed it, because it's, I've never walked there before, so I didn't know the way at all. So it was quite good that I could just, with a bit of input from my phone, just find my way through the streets and get to where I wanted to go. That was definitely a game changer as well.
Oh yeah, and I always think about these things, and talking to yourself and other CHMers and stuff with the various apps like Seeing AI. It's one that I use as well, and just think to myself, my goodness, 20 years ago, what did someone like us do?
Magnifying glass, that was the technology, I think.
Yeah, I mean, gosh, I remember, and it wasn't that long ago, again, like 20 years ago, the high-end thing when you needed to get from point A to point B was to go on to MapQuest and print out directions. and that was about as high tech as you got. And that was, mid 90s. It wasn't that long ago that was the ultimate. And now it's like, Google Maps, or, it is unbelievable, the differences that have happened, So unfortunately, you haven't made it across the pond to one of our big CRF conferences next year, June. I'm just saying, Rochester, New York.
Well, to be honest, we're thinking that 2020 was going to be the year we were going to make it across to the conference. We were looking at where Rochester was and how were the flights and how much it cost, and yeah, that didn't happen.
Unfortunately, yeah. So hey, but next year, like I said, hope springs eternal. But you did go to the CRF held a patient meeting in London, where we finally got to meet face to face. And what was that experience like for you?
I loved it. It was great. I think it was, I think we got all the speakers and everything as well, which it's good to know what's going on. But I think for me, it's always good to meet other guys and the families with choroideremia. Personally, I spent quite a lot of time on my own with it. I was told there was only one other person in the UK who got choroideremia, and he didn't want to talk to anybody about it. And then it was obviously then, when would it have been? Mid 90s, I suppose, when we found the Yahoo group.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah, because that started in 96. So yeah,
it was just after that, just finding that, and then realizing that you got the Cory welcome to the group, and then lots of other guys saying hi, and you're not on your own, I think. And then being able to then meet, I think we had Americans, German, Michael Langsfeld came over, and then obviously some of the UK guys like Paul Goodwin and Nick Tufnell to see again. That we've been fortunate enough to meet up every year or two in the UK for a few years, that we'd had sort of a catch up of all the UK choroideremas, and so that's been good. But yeah, to meet sort of yourself and Eric and Jason and Tara and everybody else it was really nice to be able to put the face to the voice and to the words as well. So yeah, I think that's always been the good part about this sort of little family we've got going on.
Yeah, I think so too. I've always said, one of the things, as a foundation and as a group, is the family atmosphere, I think, is what makes us special. I mean, really, it truly is this. I remember going, first time Karen and I went to the UK, which was 2009, I believe was the first time we went. And we had I left it up to, there's a CHM Steve Rattray, who lives in London, and he kind of helped me coordinate. And we got together for a lunch at the Dickens Inn with several people, such as Emma and Nick and Martin Etherly. So there's several CHMers showed up for that. And that was the first time I'd ever met any of them face to face, and my first exposure to Guinness in the UK.
But not the last. Yeah.
But it's so much different. It tastes so much better in the UK than it does in the US. You'd be amazed the difference, But anyway, yeah, that was a lot of fun. But when we have our conferences, and I've spoken to many people over the years that they're coming to their first conference, and they're a bit nervous because they may have never met another CHMer, or a sibling or a cousin, and that's it. And they're a little nervous about coming to this big conference with a whole bunch of people. And I always tell them the same thing, which is, you're coming to a family reunion. You just haven't met the family members yet.
That's spot on.
Yeah. And yeah, they all tell me the same thing. You were right. That's what it was. And so it's a special time. So I look forward to hopefully seeing you in Rochester next year.
Good.
I'll expose you to good beers. Well, and speaking of the CRF and CHM now, how do you feel about what's going on with the research and I guess you're allowed, because you were phase 1 too, so you're allowed to say now that you were in the trial and what the results were and things like that.
Yeah, so it's, when was it? So
Oh,
2013, 2013, I got this eye done. So that was, yeah, 8 years ago now. So I think from a purely clinical perspective, I think that it stabilized the eye. It improved after the surgery, and then I remained. So, you know, from my personal experience, that it works. It did what it was supposed to do, plus a little bit more. I think when I was treated, the view was, oh, well, you know, how long is it going to be before it's a treatment? Or 3 to 5 years, and then next year it's 3 to 5 years away, and then the next year it's 3 to 5 years away, and 8 years later it still feels like it's 3 to 5 years away. So I just kind of hope that at some point soon, that they can put all the paperwork together and go, we've got a good case here, guys, and get people treated. Because you know, it's not a cure. Let's not pretend that it is, but it is an intervention, and it is a good treatment, and for me anyway, it's worked. And I kind of hope that some of the other guys out there can go under the needle and have the same benefits, really. Because I think knowing you can hang on to what you've got, even if it's not that much, is really important. And you know, we sort of make do with what we've got now, so we can carry on doing that. So it's just about saving something, which is better than what was going to be the reality a few years back. So yeah, fingers crossed. I don't know. It's should hopefully not too far away. Maybe this year, maybe next year, but we shall see.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully we're going to find out in a couple of months from Biogen as to what their plan is going to be as they look at their data and compile it. And you know, fingers crossed. You know, they've told us, no, option 1, we move forward with the process. Option 2, we hold off to collect more data. And all of us CHMers are going, option 1, that's our vote.
Yeah.
Let's do option 1. And we like option 1, but obviously not up to them. So, now, and kind of along those same lines, as I go to the glasses, what did the CRF as a foundation, what does that mean to you, and how has that impacted your life?
I think going back, obviously, we're going back to the sort of the family thing again. It's that network of support, I suppose, that we've all got that thing in common of degenerative eye disease. But actually, the fact that we can, it's brought together people from all over the world who would never have met if it hadn't been for choroideremia.
Yeah.
We just wouldn't have, a lot of us wouldn't have the friendships that we've got now if it wasn't for having the same eye disease. I think so. From that perspective, it's bringing people together, but then obviously those people together thinking, well, actually we can do something about this, and this is what you started all those years ago. And then being able to badger and cajole people into doing something about it, whether it's the fundraising or whether it's the advocacy or the getting it out there of what choroideremia is and how it affects people and why it needs to be treated. So yeah, I think it's that focal point. I think for everybody is that there's somewhere to go for help, somewhere to go for information, and somewhere to go to try not to laugh at your awful puns that you decide to share with us every so often.
Well, sorry, I just, to me, I've always felt laughter is the best medicine for dealing with anything. So, and the way I look at it is whether you laugh or whether you kind of put your head in your hands and shake your head and say, no, Cory, no. Either way, for a couple of seconds, you're not thinking about anything else bad. you're reacting to something that's fun or really lame, but either way, you're reacting to that. So,
I think we all develop a very dark sense of humor, which people who probably don't get it look at us when we're laughing at, somebody tripping over something or face planting off a cupboard door or something like that, and it causes laughter and hilarity. The people think, "What on earth is wrong with you lot?"
Oh, I'll never forget the time I was asked to stop cracking jokes about my own blindness because I was making the other people uncomfortable.
I've had that a few times. So.
It's like, really? It's just me. Anyway, so what kind of, put yourself in the shoes, if you can, of a parent with a small child or a teenage CHMer. Look back at Wayne when he was 15. And what kind of life advice would you give to a CHMer today?
I think for me, it's like ask for help. There, especially now we've got the internet and social media and things like that. It's so much easier that you can find information, which sometimes helps alleviate things. To know what you're dealing with, but to be able to ask for help for other people to say, like, I'm not feeling good today, or I'm really struggling with life in general, or just certain aspects of life, is that there's a whole raft of people now around the world who go, yeah, totally get that, and this is what I do about it. And I think so if people ask for help, then especially in our little community, then they're going to get it and nobody's going to refuse. I suppose the other thing, make life easy for yourself. So when I registered blind back in 2003, it was because I was starting to bump into things a lot, and thought, I don't need any help. I don't need a cane. Not for me. Don't need it. Thought, no, I sort of need it. Had the mobility training, learned how to use a long cane, and then got them home and thought, I don't need those. I'm fine. And that sort of carried on for another few years of me bumping into people and cars and bollards and signs, until eventually the canes came back out. It makes life easier, as hard as it is to walk around with the damn things. What is it, the joke, Cory? The problems with choroideremia isn't the X chromosome, it's the Y, I think. Yeah. is that male stubbornness? So it's not wanting to admit defeat, I suppose. So, but giving him to using the cane is actually not admitting defeat. It's actually gaining some independence and safety for yourself and for myself and for other people. More importantly, because I'm 6'5", so if I bump into somebody, they're likely to come off second best. So
unless it's fellow CHMer Bob Pettipaw, who's like 6'8". So
but we did become a joke a bit. So if you're walking down a crowded street, the white cane becomes, we called it the Moses cane, because if you walk down the street, hold that out in front of you, then so the crowds just part, and you've got a clear run through the middle of it, because they don't want to be flattened by a blind guy with a white cane.
Now, after you started using a cane, did you have the same reaction as many of us others, which was simply, why didn't I start using this before?
Yeah, didn't want to admit it. Don't probably never admit it, but yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It just makes life easy. It's not a perfect tool, but it's a damn sight better than, I would have had a lot less scars on my shins and knees and head and every other parts of my body if I'd used it a lot earlier. So yeah, it's an effective tool. Let's call it that.
Now, do you use that in conjunction with your guide dog, or you just use one or the other?
It depends on what. If I go out somewhere unfamiliar, I'll have it in the bag, backpack with me. But most of the time, it's just me and Milton. It's my guide dog. It's harness on, off we go. And how you get used to things. When I lost my first guide dog, had to be withdrawn after it got attacked by another dog, So he just
I
became a
remember
bit
that.
scared. And so after he'd gone, I'd found myself walking through the town and got to a pedestrian crossing, pressed the button, waited, heard the beeps go, stood there, went forward, and then realised, looked down at me, I actually hadn't got the harness in me. He wasn't down on my left-hand side, so I was stood there saying forward to a cane, effectively. It just very quickly gets into your psyche a little bit, and then very much a habit of telling the dog forward. But when the dog's not there, you look very, very silly.
It was similar to, there was one of our open conversation nights that we have, our group thing is there was a CHMer that was talking about, he had walked into I forget if it was Lowe's or Home Depot or one of those types of stores, and he was looking for a certain item, and he uses a guide dog, and the gentleman, he said he looked like he was a little bit distracted. He was busy doing something on a shelf, and but he looked at him and saw the dog, and he just kind of pointed and said, "Over there." And so this gentleman looked down at his dog and said, "Over there."
Yeah.
Then the employee got it. That was hilarious. But
I think that's the one thing is people say, "Oh, where can I find this?" And they'll point and say, "Over there," and you look at them blankly.
Yeah.
You can't see their arm, let alone their hand, to see.
Especially when they stick their arm way off to one side or the other, because we don't, they don't understand, we don't see it. So it's like,
just say "over there" louder, as if you're hearing impaired as well. Dark sense of humor is coming out.
I did that once I walked into a convenience store, and it's right down the street from my house, and I knew the manager, and I walked in with my cane, and he was in the midst of training a new employee, and she saw me with the cane, and literally yelled, "Can I help you?" And of course,
in a loud, slow voice.
Oh my gosh. And my cane, I use the rolling ball tip. So it does kind of look like a little microphone on the end. So I held the cane up to her and I said, "Can you please speak up? I'm blind. I can't hear." And I thought the manager, the poor guy, he could barely breathe. He was laughing so hard. You are so bad. It happens, Well, listen, Wayne, I would like to thank you for joining me today and getting to know you a little bit better and having a fun conversation. And I look forward to either me getting across the pond to you or you getting across the pond to here, and if you do come out for the conference and you want to stay a little longer, hey, we have 2 spare bedrooms. You get a free place to stay. So, we can go to the Smith & Wesson Academy together.
I'll take my bow, and you can take your gun.
All right, my friend. Well, listen, again, thank you for joining me, and everyone watching, thank you for watching, and we'll see you again at the next session of Meet a CHM Family Member.